Hello, my name is Manuel Dudley. I'm the Dean of the Greensboro campus,
Mhm.
where I've served as Dean for 3.5 years.
And I'm Devaney, and we'll go ahead and get this started. First, I want to thank you for taking the time to interview with us and for meeting with us on last night on the panel.
Sure, enjoyed it. It was a
It
good
was
panel.
awesome.
You
It really
guys had
was.
some great questions. You really put us on guard.
Thank you.
All right.
I wanted to start off by asking you, do you think the students you work with plan on pursuing education at the university level?
I think most plan on it,
Hmm.
but I don't think most are really prepared for it.
Okay.
I
Why do you
don't.
say that?
I don't think they have. And I know this is kind of a bad thing to say, but I don't think some students have a true understanding of what it takes to be successful on the 4 year level.
Hmm.
So that's why they come to us and we assist them with that.
Okay.
But I think most have the desire or aspiration, but
Hmm.
as far as having the skills, that's where we come in.
Okay. So, in one of the articles that we read this semester, it said that students transferring from a community college to a university were more likely to succeed, graduate, and attend graduate school versus that four-year student who never came across the community college. Do you agree with that?
I definitely agree with that.
Okay.
That is 100% true.
Okay.
Once they come to us, they're much more prepared than they would have been.
I asked that question because I'm your non-traditional student. When I got to A&T, I was not a parent, but after being there for, I want to say my sophomore year, I ended up having my daughter. And so it was kind of hard, and you get all of these, well, you might want to drop out, you might want to just leave for a while. I never took a break. I didn't stop. It was hard, but the support wasn't there. So on the panel last night, Miss Free discussed the support outside of the academics that she gives to her students to understand them, which in one of the articles they used a term called other mothering, and how that came from slavery with with families being separated, and then you kind of taking on the role for that child. And so they're saying that African American professors are doing that for their students because it's a very vital piece to them succeeding in higher education as a whole. So when she said that, I'm like, that would have been so much easier for me because I looked at the community college with the social stigmas of it's not that great, it doesn't look good to go there. And so when I moved from Michigan, it was straight to A&T for me. But I think it would have been a lot easier support-wise. And although I graduated with honors, I think I could have come out magna cum laude had I matriculated through the community college system first, because I don't feel that I was adequately prepared. And I did my senior year in North Carolina at Page High School, and I wasn't prepared for anything, not the FAFSA, but not anything. And so that was interesting to me, but just wanted to get your take on that.
Okay, that is a typical experience, and I love your story because the term non-traditional is evolving, and I'm sorry, I should have cut that down. The term non-traditional is evolving into something that looks different than it did 10 years ago. So when we used to say non-traditional, we would automatically think a student that's 25 or older, maybe have an employment history of 10 years or more, someone that is coming to school later, does not have a higher educational experience, but that is changing.
Absolutely.
Non-traditional students are getting younger and younger, okay, like yourself. So your story is really becoming the profile of the student that we're getting and the students that the four-year colleges are getting. And so we've had to modify our approach and understanding of students, because what we see is that students that are coming to us, whether they're 35, 45, 25, or 18, are still missing some of the basic elements of what they may need to succeed. And not to say they're not intelligent, is that they have responsibilities.
Absolutely. So my question to you is, do you think that goes beyond academics at some point? Because, and I asked this question, my sister, my younger sister actually went to the GTCC Middle College, and I want to say she did maybe 1 or 2 years, because it took her a minute to get in. But academic-wise, she's there. Socially, not. So I, in turn, as a future adult practitioner, would view her as a non-traditional student, because she's not really meshing with the, she goes to UNC Charlotte, she's not really meshing with the university experience or the collegiate lifestyle. And so I feel that a community college lifestyle would have been much better for her, and it was much easier. So do you view those students as non-traditional when it's not just the academics or the socioeconomic status or marital status or anything like that?
Maybe not in the literal sense, but in the social sense, yes.
Okay.
Because we're now trying to reach students younger and younger with the early middle college program. We're now recruiting in the high schools and the middle schools. We talked about that last night. Students aren't really ready to go into the world until they're really 25, 26 today.
Yeah.
We're kind of mothered, you use that term, we're kind of mothered and kind of shielded from life later in life.
Yeah.
And whereas our parents, our grandparents left home at 16, 17, 18, we have folks that are staying in the home till they're 30. I mean, of course, we don't advocate that.
Absolutely.
But of course, it's tougher out here. It's harder to find a job. So the economy has changed. But you have individuals who are really becoming mature later. Although they have adult responsibilities, whether that's a child or a car or a job, they're still not really ready to handle the academic environment in some instances. So we're having to do a lot to address that.
I agree.
We have mentoring programs for female students, for male students. We have tutoring labs where students can get together, get information they need, the support they need. But that mothering, that other mother term that you use, is very practical. And I would say other father too. I would add that in there. Yeah.
Okay.
Other brother, other cousin.
I'll do the research and put that term in there.
Put it in there.
And look specifically at African American male professors in higher education.
Definitely do that.
My second question for you is, do many of the students express an interest in graduate school at the community college?
Yes. And when you say many, most, few, of course, you know, being in graduate school,
yes,
you know, you can't go but so far with those terms.
Absolutely.
And so to say many, I wouldn't use that term necessarily.
Okay.
I would say a respectable percentage of students want to matriculate into the graduate school, but I think most students want to have that terminal technical experience, like we talked about last night.
Yeah, I was going to say, from my understanding of the conversation last night, the reason you wouldn't use that term is because everybody's not here for that. Everybody doesn't want that and to begin with. So the idea typically is not to come to the community college and automatically transfer, but to get like those daycare classes, those certification classes to work at a daycare and be done with it.
Right.
Okay.
Right. That's definitely the case.
So do you feel that attending a community college is a solid stepping stone for the university bound student, for that student in that 2-year track or that transfer track?
Oh, definitely.
And that's because of things we've already pretty much discussed on the support system and getting the basics that they needed before they enter the rigorous programs.
Right.
Okay. Do most of the students you assist feel that they are getting an education equal to that provided by four-year institutions' freshman and sophomore programs?
We need to do some work on that.
Okay.
As you talked about earlier, and even we talked about last night, there's still a little bit of a stigma. I don't think students generally feel like they're getting the same, although they are. I think they feel like they're getting exactly what they need without the fluff. So that's why some students choose to go to an ITT or an ECPI or a DeVry, because they just want the basics. So I think sometimes the students come to us, they know they're getting the basics unless they really want to transfer. Okay. So the qualifications of our instructors are the same.
That's right.
They're SACS accredited. They can teach mostly on the university level, except for some of our technical courses, because in technical programs, you don't necessarily need a master's degree or a doctorate. You just need the experience and the certification. And of course, the teaching experience is always good. So you don't find the same level of qualifications, but again, when a student is going through a college transfer program, those professors can teach on the university level.
Okay.
So they're getting the same information. We use the same textbooks. We use the same SLOs, student learning objectives in many cases. And we talked about articulation agreements last night and being co-enrolled. That's why we had those partnerships, because we held to the same standard. North Carolina A&T has to go through SACS reaccreditation. So does GTCC.
Okay.
And so do all the community colleges in North Carolina. So we're held to the same standard.
Okay. One of the articles talked about the professors at a university, yes, they have their PhDs and they have all these degrees. However, the focus is more so on the research and not the actual teaching. So the students in turn lack. You say you have this knowledge to give to your students, but they're not really getting the practical piece of it. Like, they're not getting your everything. Kind of like Miss Free said. She said, I am my students' everything last night, which was profound to me, because I feel like Dr. Wallace is some kind of, like, I know for mine, she's like my everything. I go to her for everything.
Right.
So, but you don't get that a lot. And I got it a little bit in my social work program, and I feel like that's only because it was social workers. They had been in the field, so they're different from whether I was in engineering or some other program where some of my friends were, that they didn't feel they were getting that support. So with the article, it was stating you get the teaching more so and the students benefit better at the community college because there is no research focus or takeaway for that professor. So that is their sole duty. Do you feel that that's an adequate representation of that, or no? Because as we discussed last night, some faculty and administrators are in multiple roles, so it's that area still may be lacking. So it's kind of the both for both institutions.
Yeah, I think it's an asset, and I think that us not having that publish or perish situation, as you would on the university level, really benefits us. Because when I was in the classroom, I was able to focus on teaching. I was able to focus on working with students. I was able to focus on networking in the community and doing anything to improve my program. I wouldn't have necessarily that flexibility on the university level. I would probably have a class of 300 students, and I would have my graduate assistant probably teaching or helping me check papers. And so all of that creates barriers in a relationship between the instructor and the student. You reading that student's paper for yourself and understanding where their deficits are makes a huge difference. You emailing that student one-on-one instead of having your GA or your secretary do it makes a difference. It's about building relationships. So I understand that the setting is different, but I will say that's something that is really an asset for us. Teaching, working with our own students. We don't have an assistant. We don't have a GA. We don't have pressure to publish a book or publish 3 articles within a year. Even though some community college instructors and administrators are doing that now. Their interest is very high. But not having that pressure really benefits us. And I think that's a good thing. And that's something that we need to retain.
I agree with that. Do you feel that community colleges spend more energy guiding students toward vocational programs or towards advanced education?
A little bit of both. It really just depends on the student. We see students from all walks of life. As I said last night, we have a student that wants to get a certificate in plumbing, and we have that student that wants to transfer to Duke for pre-law. Having that wide mix of students in your class and on your campus makes a huge difference. And so we have to be prepared for anyone. We have to be prepared for any level of goal that the student may have.
And I know this kind of feels like some things we discussed last night. I wish we could have recorded that could have been our interview. But I think the reason for that question being a part of our set is that the text, of course, and the articles, there's a myth that you push them more towards one thing than the other. But as we found out last night, the focus here is the student. What do you want to do? And pretty much that student finding themselves and exactly where they're good at. And like I think it was Miss Jones pointed out that if a student is waiting on one of your nursing programs or the dental assisting program and they don't qualify to get in, they point them to other options that they may qualify for that's within that same track to help them navigate their way. So I think that kind of answers that question in saying it's what you're coming here for, what you ultimately want to do, and having to choose rather than spinning the wheel and wasting financial aid for years, which most students in the past have done. This is what we got from the text. I didn't know if it was true.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay.
It's true.
Because I was going to ask one of the students that spoke on the panel last night that said they had been there for 3 years. Have you maxed out your financial aid with those developmental courses, or then what do you do for the students?
That's a tough situation for a lot of students. And you have to look at the other side too. Not everyone is ready to choose a major. when they first go to school. Not everyone knows what their talents and gifts are and where their interests are. I mean, it takes some time. So I think we need to assist students in that process more. You just can't sit across from a student and say, okay, here's the book. Here are 3 things. What do you like? What do you see yourself doing?
In undergrad, we had a lot of the nursing majors come over to like social work and sociology and psychology. And so it was fun.
Right.
Those are like on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Right.
I was like, what are you doing?
Right.
Nursing was the thing to do. Or,
right.
So I agree on both institution levels that a lot of the students are just picking something, or that higher education is becoming a fad or the thing to do instead of actual career-driven students.
Right.
Are the students at the community college level provided with advisement services equal to those in the university? I think I know your answer, but I want to.
Yes. And yes. Sometimes even better.
I was going to say.
Yeah, sometimes even better. I think we've done some things in the last year with the support of Ms. Jones and all the student services to address those individual needs.
Absolutely. And when you have a student who clearly displays little to no aptitude for higher education, what do you tell them?
And again, I teach classes. I don't work with students on that level.
Okay.
But I think if you're a counselor or an instructor, I think we're all very honest with students. We don't want them to burn up their financial aid. We don't want them to waste their time. We don't want our time to be wasted, actually. So I think what happens is some type of intervention, if you will. Look, I know you want to be an electrical engineer. You just failed 2 math classes. Let's talk about something else. Is this the best fit? Do you need some tutoring? What assistance do you need? So I think those conversations are taking place.
So trying to find the root of why those classes were failed before moving them totally to another idea. To see the reasons why. So that other mothering and other fathering.
That's it. That's it. I mean, like yourself and like I experienced, I wanted to be a psychologist. I made a D in my first psychology class at UNCG. I still ended up going into a counseling field and still doing that, but I need to figure out what the deficit was. So the instructor, fortunately, just didn't give up on me. But there are some things I just needed to know and learn.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad that person said, you're not going to be a counselor, you can't be a psychologist, you need to change your major.
Because you have, and I think that starts in middle school, high school, sometimes elementary even, with, and one of the students on the panel, the student from, I think she was from Maryland, I can't remember, Delaware.
Yeah.
She mentioned the make it or break it in those conversations, and I was a job coach, or a graduation coach at Carver High School in Winston, and a lot of my students were told that, and so they have no aspirations to go to community college or a university, and so it's hard to even get them to want to graduate from high school. So I think that those conversations, like you all said, targeting that middle school age, is going to be very vital to the success or continuation of our society as a whole.
Definitely.
What are some of the biggest problems or concerns students express regarding their decisions to attend community college as the first step towards a degree?
Oh man, money. Having enough money. Having the time.
Having enough money to come here. They think the community college is expensive or something.
Yeah.
And that's because of the population of students typically. So if it's not a specific certificate program or vocational technical program, you typically get lower SES students looking at the community college versus the universities. But they're still concerned about the tuition.
They're concerned about the tuition because what's happening, or what has happened, is that many students are coming to us who have been laid off. They don't have any other options. They have to be retrained. They're trying to find another career. So many students use their financial aid as their sole source of income. I mean, it's the same thing that's happening on the university level, but in a different way. So when you have a person that has a child or children that has rent to pay, that doesn't have the luxury of staying in a dorm where food is already prepared, they have shelter, this person has to pay for their apartment or their home or their car, transportation or medical bills. And so students are financially strained.
So my question with that is, a lot of students, university level and community college level, try to live off their refunds. But I think the students that are in this particular question that are concerned about the cost, because you said that was one of their highest concerns, expressed concerns, they're like thinking, I have to pay this back. I'm broke right now and I need this education, but I don't really want that because I still have to pay this back. Whereas I don't think that students attending the four-year institutions without those scholarships, I don't think they're looking at that. I think they're looking at just going, getting that college experience, using those refunds to do whatever have you, and assuming when they get their bachelor's that they're going to have this high-paying job to pay that back. Do you agree that some of the students coming to community college are looking at, I have to pay that back, that's why tuition is a concern for me?
Yeah, I don't think they're looking at they have to pay that back.
Okay.
I think they're doing the same stuff.
Okay.
Trying to survive month to month. And if a person doesn't choose a major that is going to grant them $20,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year salary, and they have loans of $30,000 plus, you know, what's going to happen there? Because that's what's going on with a lot of students. They want to pursue an engineering degree, or they want to pursue, I don't know, early childhood development. And we know that you're not paid a whole lot in that field.
Yes.
I mean, you can own the daycare, but the everyday worker is probably lucky to make more than $20,000, $25,000 a year.
Right.
But they have loans in excess possibly of $30,000, $40,000. So, you know, we're constantly trying to navigate that with students and make sure they choose the right major that's going to net them the money that they need to survive.
I was going to say that was something in undergrad in a research class that I looked at doing research on once I got into higher ed, and because I hate research, but I'm interested in it. I just don't like the process of doing it.
Right. And you'll probably make a good researcher, though. We can talk about that later. It's funny how that happens. People that usually hate something are usually the best at it.
Okay. But I wanted to look at why students are choosing certain majors and career paths, but are not looking at the field and what jobs are available, and possibly looking at, is this going to be something that I'm still have 10 years from now, 20 years from now? Doctors are always needed. Nurses are always needed. You know, they're not, but they're not choosing those fields, or they're choosing fields like, for my field, undergrad social work, for instance, where people get in those positions and lock them down until they retire, and you're just stuck, or you have to go to some rural area, city, to get the position.
Right. And people are running from certain careers just because they're afraid of math. Many students have a math phobia. And so you're a person, okay, all right. So someone that probably want to be a chemist can't do the, what is it called, equations? Yeah. And, you know, they run away from math. And so your former nurse, like you said, is now a social worker.
Yep.
Okay. So that's happening too.
I see it. With the high immigration numbers so prevalent in our modern community college setting, do you feel that all students are being given an equal opportunity to reach their academic goals in a timely manner, if at all?
I would think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And lastly, for this set of questions, I wanted to ask you are you a parent?
Yes.
Okay. As a parent who has every intention of seeing your child graduate from a university with a degree someday, would you be comfortable with them securing their first 2 years of higher education?
Oh, wow.
At a
See,
community
y'all are wrong for that. See, I tell you what. But, you know, that's a good question. And as you spoke to earlier, we do have the early middle college program on the community colleges. Sure. I'm an advocate of it. I know the power of it. If my daughter came to me and said, I want to go to G-Tech for the first 2 years, I would say, go ahead. Let's pay. Let's get it done. But of course, I would steer her into the right career. Now, we would have to talk a little bit more.
Okay.
But yeah, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, as they say. So I'm an advocate all the way.
That's awesome.
That's a great question.
Well, because we found it interesting, especially for some faculty that work at the community college setting and system. They're big advocates for it, for the society. But when it comes to that in-home, they're kind of like, no, Susie's going to Chapel Hill. Like, you know, and it's like, you kind of contradict it. And you're saying what's good for my child or what's best for my child. And where you're trying to steer my child and saying they need to save money, you're not using that same thing. And that's kind of like,
that's not right.
So that's why we ask it, because
That's a very, who thought of that
it's good
question?
One of my group members.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
I had a few questions from last night's conversation and panel.
Okay.
If I can find it.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to check my messages. That's okay.
Okay.
You still recording?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's just a few, because a lot of them were answered. Do you feel as an administrator your duties take away from your teaching when you do teach classes, or you knowing your students? How well do you feel you know them as an administrator? Because there's a difference without you seeing them every day, or them being in your classroom every day, or being Miss Free and being their advisor, their administrator, their teacher.
Mm-hmm. There is a difference, but I think it's appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Because as an administrator, I'm representing the students more so than working with the students.
Mm-hmm.
I always have my ear to the ground. I take time to talk to students. I teach at night just so I can have that one-on-one contact with students more so.
Because I want to say, as students, even speaking from a four-year institution level, it kind of bothers me sometimes for administrators in certain positions to represent us, but you don't know us. When have you taken the time to talk to us?
You really do.
We can never get a meeting with you. We can never, So it's kind of like, how are you adequately representing your campus or your student population, and you don't know them?
You're right. You're right.
So for you to say you have your ear to the ground, that's very, I guess, reassuring for me as a student, even though I'm not attending GTech, that it's happening and that it matters to somebody.
It does matter. And I found out more from students just standing in the hallway. Just standing there, students coming in and going out. Sometimes I just stand there, greet students, say hello. Mm-hmm. And then some will engage. Some will look lost and confused. And you can tell that they have a question. You say, can I help you? Are you new to the campus? Yeah. That really makes a difference.
Awesome. And I want to say, that's it, actually.
That's it.
That is
you only
it.
had one.
Everything else was kind of answered.
Okay.
And yeah, we kind of covered everything.
Okay.
As to why they attend. And I think between the panel last night, the text and the articles, it's self-explanatory, especially if you're immersed in your community and this is really what you want to do. And if you've actually been going outside of the classroom setting to find information, because I can't imagine as a student looking to graduate in May not knowing these things or not looking to additional texts or resources. So I think a lot of the questions were answered, and it's kind of self-explanatory once you learn the environment that you're interested in.
Okay.
So thank you so much, Dr. Dudley, for taking the time to interview with me today.
You're welcome.
It was my pleasure.
It's been a pleasure as well.